It is a brand new week here at St. John Fisher College. This St. John Fisher University, excuse me. The banners are up all over campus, Ryan Talbot. This is the Shout Buffalo Football Podcast brought to you by Value Home Centers. Right now, if you go to valuehomecenters.com, customers can shop anytime online. You buy online, pick up today, or shop from their huge selection of products. They'll ship to your local store from their warehouse for free. It's really awesome. He's Ryan Talbot. I'm Matt Parrino. This is the Shout Buffalo Football Podcast, and it is a packed edition, Ryan. I got into the notebook today, and before long, I was like, I kept having to push the start time back. I didn't realize how long this thing was going to take me. There was a lot to unpack. And guess what? If you're watching right now, you can go read my story. There's 10 observations up at Syracuse.com. But if you're watching the podcast, you're going to get even more because I couldn't fit it all in. What is up, Ryan Talbot?
Hey, not too much, Matt. You just used the word awesome. It sounds like it was a pretty awesome day at St. John Fisher University and a really awesome day for the defense.
Man, it was charged up from the very start. So when we got out there today, you could always tell like the first couple of plays, like who has that early advantage in terms of who's kind of setting the tone. And man, it was at the defense early on. Nothing was going right for the offense. Josh Allen was a little bit erratic, had a couple throws. Same thing as yesterday, just I think kind of getting dialed up. I'm wondering if being back at St. John Fisher with all the fans and the hype and the excitement after 2 years, if Sugar Rush Josh Allen is just back a little bit, having to kind of dial things down a little bit. He's talked about this, he's been very open about it over the course of his career that sometimes he gets a little dialed up at the start and needs to kind of reset. He did that. And there were a lot of, really good offensive plays as well. But I thought the defense was really good. Without pads on, you really got to rely on your quickness, reading what the offense is doing. And I think some of the frustration we saw on the offensive side of the ball from Ken Dorsey, Tavon Austin was pacing up and down at one point, really frustrated. Stefon Diggs having to go over, talk to some of the young guys who were, basically came back to him and said, I'm just trying not to make a mistake out there. And sometimes when you play like that, it leads to just, not great plays. And after long, they did start to make some, but a couple of standouts defensively in the beginning. Khalil Elam, I thought, was playing really, really well. Sticky coverage. You could just see the quickness and the speed, the stuff that we talked about when he was getting drafted. And then another couple of cornerbacks, Jaquan Johnson. I mean, listen, not a lot of times do quarterbacks, including Josh Allen in practice, test Jaquan Johnson. One play in particular, he was lined up one-on-one in coverage with Isaiah McKenzie. McKenzie kind of ran across the field, and man, Jaquan Johnson just step for step with him, dove at the last second, broke up the pass, was right in front of the defense. They kind of came out on the field. They all kind of circled around him. There was a lot of yelling, and that kind of started, the hype training, if you will. And then a couple plays later, Cam Lewis gets a pass breakup where he was working one-on-one against Isaiah Hodgins and absolutely shut Hodgins down. And you're talking about a 5'9" corner in Cam Lewis against a 6'3", wide receiver in Isaiah Hodgins. That's not how it's supposed to work. Cam Lewis plays bigger than his frame, but he was absolutely out physical Hodgins at the point of attack. He was covering him. He step for step with him. You just saw some of the frustration there. And then a couple plays later, I can't remember who the receiver was, but Lewis came flying into the play at the end. Pass breakup again, got up. It looked like he said some stuff to the defense or to the offense right in front of the offensive sideline. It was a really, really intense, but, competitive. The competitive fire, the competitive juices were flowing.
And that's what you like to hear. And it sounds like you mentioned, a really good day for the defensive backs. First and foremost, Khalil Elam. This is what the Bills want to see. You drafted this guy in the first round to eventually start opposite Tre'Davious White whenever White is healthy. Obviously, the job will not be handed to Elam. He's going to have to compete with Dane Jackson. But these practices, you want to stack them one on top of the other. So it's good for him to start. I mentioned yesterday, iron sharpening iron. When you're going against Gabriel Davis, you're going against Stefon Diggs. You want to see the signs of, okay, this guy's growing. He's getting it. He's making a play here and there. And when you're going against talented receivers like that, it comes with time. So good start for him. Cam Lewis is one that I really want to focus in on, Matt, because you really mentioned him in your observations. before the start of training camp, we went back and forth on Cam Lewis. Is there a spot for him here when you already have White, you have Elam, you have Dane Jackson, you have Taron Johnson, who is the most underrated player on this roster, in my opinion. And then you have Saran Neal and a lot of younger guys, including Christian Benford, who was drafted this year. And it's all of a sudden, is there room for a Cam Lewis? Well, listen, Lewis, undrafted player out of UB, he's gotten better every year. At one point, he was kind of on his way to getting a starting role in Buffalo in season, and then an injury took place. He seems to just be getting better and better each year, and he's going to force his way onto this 53-man roster if he keeps making plays like this in these practices this week, but then obviously starting on Saturday once the pads come on.
So I wrote in my observations, and like I mentioned, you can go over to Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com as well. 1,500 plus words from practice today. We took a deep dive for you. And I said, I think Lewis is moving into roster lock position, where if I were to do a 53-man roster right now today, Ryan, there's not a single, and I know it's an unpadded practice. You don't want to overreact, but sometimes there's just like a vibe that a guy gives off, a confidence level that they give off. He is playing with elite confidence. I think if they had to put him out there in for Taron Johnson, in for Elam, in for Jackson, in for White when he gets back, they would not hesitate to do it. The guy's just playing at a level. And I think one of the things that comes with time in a system too is that you get to a place where you know what your role is and what your responsibilities are so clearly, you play faster. And Lewis was absolutely blazing fast today.
Yeah, there's something about knowing the playbook, having that playbook for multiple years now, and knowing the ins and outs of it. You mentioned on the receiver position, Matt, some of the young guys saying we don't want to make a mistake. Cam Lewis is at that point now on the defense where I don't think he worries about that anymore because he's had this playbook for so long. He doesn't have to worry about learning new terminology, learning his responsibilities because he knows his role. He's comfortable with everything that Leslie Frazier has been doing with this defense, and it's showing on the practice field.
Mm-hmm. Let's go, speaking of, young players and guys that had a big day today, let's shift gears over to the offensive side of the ball because I thought Khalil Shakir, this is the second straight day where I wrote about him, the second straight day where, you can just start to see the possibilities for what he could potentially look like in this offense. And great observation, Peter Coppola on the YouTube channel. You could tell it is early in camp because I'm not nearly as sunburned as I should be. Look at the white there, Ryan. I mean, there's no tan line yet. Like I feel like I'm not doing my part. I feel like people probably are like, what's going on here? Yeah, the sunglasses tan, little sidetrack here. Rick Rarick, he mentions this. I do a really good job at taking the sunglasses off enough during the day to where I get kind of like an equal tan. Do you ever think about that when you're out in the sun? Like, I don't want to have those big goggle tan lines out here.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm in the pool though, maybe I'll doze off for a minute, and then it's no good at that point. But yeah, you're right. When you're out and about, got to take them off, even up that tan line at some point.
You sleep in the pool. You could sleep in the pool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get on the flow. Oh yeah, a little sun, absolutely.
Wow. I probably could do it. The only problem is, can you do it even if there's like a lot of noise around you, or does it have to be kind of like quiet and just like kind of just?
I could probably do it with noise, but usually it's when the kids are out of the pool. So yeah, usually quieter.
Okay. All right. Good intel. Little sidetrack there. So Shakir made a couple of really good catches. I think one of the catches was maybe the catch of the day. And we'll get to one that, was also in contention from Gabriel Davis a little bit later on. But it came from Case Keenum. He was working in coverage against Nick McCloud, who we're going to talk about in a minute as well. And he just got past the defense and just settled into an opening and made himself available for the quarterback. And the quarterback made a pretty good throw. He had to kind of get high up and make the catch. And I think it was also Damar Hamlin, who was kind of in the vicinity, that kind of came over a little bit late. Shakir, he has such a good feel for the game. Like, some of the stuff early on, you wonder with some of these younger players. I was listening to Sean McDermott on with Howard and Jeremy this morning, and they asked him a really good question about, what he saw from the rookies on day one and what he's looking for from them. And he's like, we got the tape on last night from day one. And what you're looking for is how much did a lot of these young guys study what they learned over the course of OTAs and minicamp, and what do they take back with them, learn from, and then apply some of what they learned on the practice field. And you could see when they don't know what they're doing, that maybe they didn't do enough. And I think with Shakir, what stands out to me more than anything is like, sure, he's made a couple of big plays in the first 2 days of camp, and that's great. But he never looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know where to go. It's almost like after practice, I did observe that he was working with, I'm going to say his name wrong. Hang on. You got the sheet. You might as well use it. Neil Pau, number 82, the undrafted free agent that the Bills have in. They were just doing some work off to the side and, running through routes. And it looked like maybe talking through some philosophy on footwork and how to come out of your breaks. And those are the kind of little things that, like, as a rookie, he's already doing that. And maybe he's not, I didn't get any intel on that. So maybe that wasn't him showing him anything, but he just has a very cerebral approach. I talked to him after practice today for a story that I'm going to be working on over the course of the next couple of days. And he's just like a really impressive dude. He spent, he was born in Virginia. Then he moved to Japan for 5 years. His dad was in the military, came back to California, where he lived until he ended up going to Boise State. His brother played soccer. He played soccer up until his sophomore year of high school. And you could see it with the way that he moves out there. I asked him how important was that. And he's like, man, the footwork that you get from dealing with a ball on your feet all the time, it's something that's really catapulted him and helped him with his route running. And he seems to be a student of the game as well. And the thing I also noted in my observations is, Ryan, he's coming in ready-made as a rookie. Just think 1, 2, 3 years working in the same receiving room with one of the best route runners in the NFL and Stefon Diggs. It's hard not to think of the potential that he can maybe have in this offense.
Yeah, the ceiling is high for Shakir. There's no doubt about that, Matt. And as you've mentioned, the first 2 days, he's been someone that's been talked about more than maybe anyone else on this offense for the young players. He's showing up. He's making a name for himself. As you mentioned, it comes down to the playbook and knowing it. And I think there was maybe one miscommunication today. I saw a video of it, and immediately he went to Josh Allen. They got on the same page. Isaiah McKenzie helped him out too. And I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise or anything like that, but Jamison Crowder, for instance, he was off to the side today. He was on the bike. That's more reps for a guy like Shakir, maybe in the slot. We've talked about his position versatility a little bit too. So whether it's this year on the inside, on the outside, if Shakir keeps practicing the way that he has been, there's going to be a role for him. It might start out small, but as that year goes on, the more trust he gains from Josh Allen, from Sean McDermott, from this offense and Ken Dorsey, the bigger the role is going to be. And it's encouraging to see how strong of a start Khalil Shakir is getting off to.
Where do you want to go next, buddy?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the leadership of Stefon Diggs, because you mentioned the offense got off to a kind of a bit of a slow start today. Tavon Austin pacing on the sidelines, talking to the young guys. We know that Stefon Diggs is such a great route runner. We know that he's one of the best receivers in the league. But, you know, in your opinion, is the leadership that we've seen from him over his time in Buffalo maybe one of the best attributes of the leadership that he provides to this team?
For me, the leadership component of what he's been makes the contract that they gave him that much more fulfilling is not the right word, but like you're so much more eager to hand him that big time contract, that big time extension, knowing it's not just the numbers that you're paying for. You're paying for the development of other guys, lifting up other guys with you. And he was actually asked about that today. Like, do you make other guys around you better? And he's like, his direct quote was, I don't really live in that world, because his style of leadership, it's a little bit different, right? Like he said, he'll go and tell Isaiah McKenzie that the only reason he's getting open is because of Stefon Diggs, right? And that's just kind of the way that he has that relationship with him. But he's also a veteran, right? Like, he's got other veterans on his team. He played with Emmanuel Sanders last year. So there's a competitive, push and pull going on there where they're pushing each other in that whole situation. But I think the starstruck nature of a lot of these young players, Shakir talked about it when they drafted him, with Diggs and the way that he is an open book and kind of, gets into the lab with all these guys. And, he also talked about Gabriel Davis and the work that he did in the offseason and how much he was impressed with, the strides that he's taken. So I think that the leadership component of Diggs is something that it was probably the most underreported part of his tenure in Minnesota, and now the Bills, I think one of the reasons their offense has taken the steps that it's taken over the last couple of years is because of how good of a leader he's been and how good of a teammate he's been. And he's a captain and he's earned it.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. And we've already seen what he's helped do to Gabriel Davis's game. We know he loves to razz Isaiah McKenzie a little bit. We know that McKenzie does benefit from having him on the field and learning from him. And it's going to be good for Shakir and some of these other receivers on the roster for sure. So good to see Diggs, not just playing well on the field because he's had a strong 2 days of camp as well, but also taking on that leadership role. Matt, how about talking a little bit about the offensive line? They did a little, it looked a little bit different today in terms of maybe what you can discuss. Is this Aaron Cromer just trying to get the best out of this line to see what they can do in terms of versatility?
Well, I'll tell you what, this offensive line has a ton of versatility. I mean, everywhere you look, guys can play multiple positions. And yesterday with Roger Saffold, out indefinitely with the rib issue after the car accident on the non-football injury list. We'll see how long that kind of plays out. Yesterday it was Cody Ford. Today it was David Quessenberry. And so Quessenberry goes from playing right tackle yesterday. They shift him inside to left guard. And that's some versatility. I mean, you go back to Cody Ford. When they moved him from right tackle, the first place that they moved him was to right guard. For Quessenberry, a veteran, to be able to go all the way over 3 spots, you could just kind of see, what maybe they're thinking with him. And, they're not afraid to use some of their bigger outside pieces on the interior. And today they also moved Tommy Doyle with the first team out to right tackle. Spencer Brown, he participated yesterday in the team drills. He did not today. So what I surmise from that, not being able to ask Sean McDermott about it, is it's going to be a situation where you walk before you can run, right? They don't want to put too much on his plate too soon. I'm not taking anything. I don't think that I wouldn't make an observation that Tommy Doyle has surpassed Spencer Brown on the depth chart. Spencer Brown didn't even participate in the team drills today. So we'll see how that kind of transpires, but Tommy Doyle kind of getting moved around a little bit. And I just think overall, it's something that the Bills covet. They want guys that can play multiple positions. They want to get a look at them. They want to see, all right, when we get to the games, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a ton of different looks on that offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with that. Versatility has been huge for this team. You look at Ryan Bates, someone that can play all 5 spots. You look at Quessenberry, who can play tackle and guard, and some of the other players over the years that have had that versatility. I think that is big for the Bills. And mind you, I think the Bills are optimistic that a Roger Saffold will be ready by week 1 or sometime during the preseason. But it's good to figure out, hey, if worst case scenario, something happens here, who do we start at that spot? Is it Ford? Is it someone else? Is it Quessenberry? And if it's Quessenberry, what do you do at tackle if Spencer Brown's not ready to go? And again, this is all speculation. There's no reason to believe that both of those players won't be ready to go by week 1, but you want to be prepared. You want to have all the looks possible, all the combinations possible, and say, who are the best 5 players that we can put out there to protect Josh Allen, to make sure that the run game can get going, to make sure that this offense can move the ball consistently.
Not a lot of action in the run game the first 2 days. And honestly, what good really is that without pads on anyway? So probably better to kind of work on some of the other things. But I will say that there was one play that specifically stood out. Devin Singletary got the ball from Allen when they went into one of the final 11-on-11 periods. They started deep in their own zone. They were going to, kind of march down the field, see how far they can go. First play, handoff to Devin Singletary, and Ed Oliver absolutely explodes through the line, beats Mitch Morse. Like, I just think it was the foot speed more than anything that he was just on him, and it would have been a 4-yard loss, tackle for a loss. I thought the defensive line really was impressive today. Like, without pads, just using their foot speed, their quickness. There was one play where Josh Allen had to roll out to his left, and he was looking for Stefon Diggs, and I thought Elam had really good coverage. I thought it was one of his best reps of the day. Didn't allow Diggs to get any type of separation to give Allen an out. Allen ended up having to throw it out of bounds, but it was Jordan Phillips who was just on his horse, man, just running downhill. And Josh Allen had no time to react, no time to really think. He had to get rid of the ball. And so that's what I've really noticed across the line. Also, Von Miller, one rep in particular, but I think I could have probably written about 5 or 6 of them. You get to the point where it's like, all right, it's just Von Miller. You expected this going into camp.
Yeah,
it'll be fun when the pads go on. But one rep in particular was him versus Cody Ford. I think it was a little bit of backdoor spin move where he worked him out to his to Dawkins. Did I say Dawkins or Ford? Sorry, it was Dawkins. He was
Dawkins.
Working.
Yep.
Yeah, got him out to his left, spun back inside to Dawkins' right, and on the end of the move had Josh Allen just dead to rights right there. And he won the rep so convincingly. He actually bumped into Allen. And it's one of those ones where you're like, whoop, stop the play, stop everything. And a few minutes later, Josh Allen kind of made his way over to the defensive sideline. I think he kind of chatted with Vaughn about it a little bit. But it was a great rep from Vaughn. And he's locked in. He's as advertised what you would have expected so far.
Yeah. And listen, I see in the chat, you want to make sure that this continues when the pads are on, but it's encouraging to see what this defensive line has done so far today with Ed Oliver showing that burst, kind of picking up where he left off from last year. I thought he had an outstanding season despite taking on a lot of double teams. You had Tim Settle yesterday with the big play. You have Jordan Phillips making a play today, and then obviously Von Miller with that pass rush arsenal, the ability to bend the way that he can. The movement skills are still there. It's really exciting to think about what this defensive line is going to look like come week 1. And that's not even mentioning Jaquan Jones, who can take on the run. These young pass rushers like Greg Rousseau and Boogie Basham, as well as AJ Epinesa, Shaq Lawson, the veteran. The list goes on and on. This defensive line is deep, and so far it's off to a really strong start. And really, if you're looking at that roster from last year, Matt, the defensive line was the weak link. It was what probably kept them from really being that dominant force that maybe would get them to the Super Bowl and win the whole thing. If that unit is clicking, the secondary especially, you have a great linebacking core there. So I really think it comes down to the defensive line, and so far so good, I guess, with the way they're playing to date.
So good also is the loyalty program over at Value Home Centers. They call it Best Rewards, and customers earn points for purchases every day that will bring them more savings. Veterans and active military earn double points on every purchase every day. For more details, head over to valuehomecenters.com. Where do you want to go next? What kind of questions you got? Actually, here's one. I see it in the comments here. Jacob Micel over on YouTube. How is Groot looking? I didn't write about it in my observations because I don't believe he got credited for the sack. But I think he was going one-on-one with Dawkins, and Josh Allen was back to pass. And that was the miscommunication, I believe you mentioned earlier, where he had ended up talking to Khalil Shakir after the play. So Allen got rid of the ball. But again, they're not really blowing these plays dead. But Shakir worked, Rousseau had a great move. It was kind of like an outside speed move. And I don't know if he just cut it back or if he spun it back. I kind of caught on the end, but the footwork it's really impressive for the size. And I think that when you're seeing somebody like that pop in these kinds of practices, it's impressive. And, I thought Boogie Basham, he looks quicker. I haven't had any plays where, he beat somebody so good that I had to write about it, but I just think he's looked quick. I haven't really noticed AJ Epinesa a ton, but again, as we move through the week, as we get closer to pads day, that's when we're going to really start to unlock some of the chatter with some of this front seven.
Yeah, looking forward to Saturday when they're in pads the first time. Like you said, when the observations come out, we'll be talking about the pass rushers, how they're looking, and things like that. In the chat, Jameson, Tim Settle at defensive tackle. You're not worried he's a rookie if I'm reading that all correctly. Tim Settle's not a rookie. He was with Washington for a few seasons before he signed with the Bills this year in free agency. He really played well in Washington as well. So no worries about him joining this defensive line at defensive tackle whatsoever. Matt, how about a little bit about Nick McCloud? You mentioned him, his name earlier, but you also had him in the observations. He had a pretty nice day today. And he's, again, we talked about versatility on the offensive line. We've talked about on the defensive line. They like those players that have the versatility as well on the back end of the defense in terms of defensive backs.
Yeah, Nick McCloud had himself a day today. And, honestly, he probably would have been featured more prominently had Cam Lewis not been so electric. And Lewis's speed is like his closing speed, and his understanding of the defense is what I think more than anything separates him from some of these other younger guys. But McCloud's speed is sneaky. Like, he kind of lulls you into a sense of security and then all of a sudden reacts and pops into a play. And before you know it, he's there. The first play was an interception working against Tavon Austin. Now, I think that he pushed him in the back, and Austin immediately came up and kind of made the flag symbol. And, it probably was in a game situation that probably would have been called. But he made the play on the sideline, got his feet down. It was a athletic play. And then later in practice, I don't know if it was a miscommunication, an overthrow. McCloud may have stepped in front of the pass. I didn't see it clearly. I was kind of looking through a group of defenders, but he made another play and he secured the play. To me, that's the most noteworthy part of this. Like, you want finishers in the secondary, guys that can make plays, not just bat balls down, but get interceptions as well. Dane Jackson also had an interception on an airmail pass from Allen earlier in practice. I didn't talk about that as much just because it was a miscommunication and there was nobody really in the vicinity. But again, making the play, and I think that's worth talking about.
Yeah, going to Nick McCloud, he's really interesting. I am a Notre Dame fan. I got to see him a little bit at Notre Dame. He didn't play as fast as his 40 time. He ran a blazing 4.37 at his pro day. So he does have that speed, though. So when you said, he kind of just flew into the play, I'm not stunned by that. I think that maybe it's a comfort issue when he was at Notre Dame. He had transferred there. Maybe it was getting used to the defense. I think he has the ability to play at a high level of speed and to play with speed on the outside, inside, wherever they play him, whether it's at corner or safety. So I'm really excited to see him develop. Jordan Poyer had high praise for him this offseason when he did a recent podcast that he kind of reminds him a little bit of himself in terms of the road that he's taken to the NFL. He wasn't drafted. Poyer, obviously, a little bit different in that boat, but it's all about getting the opportunities, playing well, learning from year to year. And McCloud is off to a pretty solid start here from his spring and then making some plays here early on at training camp.
Couple questions I want to get to in the chat here. Some good stuff. Great stuff on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Welcome in on a Monday early evening here, right about 5 o'clock. I don't know if you're still at work, watching late. Maybe you're on the West Coast, or maybe you're in another country and it's breakfast time. I don't know. But hit that like button. It really helps. Gets more people in the room. Post-show spreads it around YouTube a little bit more. Subscribe to the channel as well. We're on the road to 7K. Hopefully we get there before the start of the season. Got to set goals. Stefon Diggs talked a little bit about that today. He doesn't like to set individual goals. He's more about the team goals, right? I'm more about the team goals. I want to get the team channel up to 7K. But a couple things here. First, Michael asks on YouTube, what's the overall feeling on the sidelines? Loose, confident, heavy? I think it's been very loose. It's almost like there's sections of the team, right? There's the veterans. There's the guys that have been here. Sean McDermott mentioned it the other day. Only about a quarter of the roster has been to St. John Fisher before. So I think there's an element of just getting used to your surroundings. That's part of what's happening, getting comfortable being in front of fans again at training camp, something that hasn't happened in 2 years. So that dynamic you saw, I feel like everybody getting a little bit more comfortable as the day went on today. You start to see guys start to react a little bit more when the talking starts to happen. That's when you feel right at home at training camp. And then Michael also asked, do you think the relationships that are cultivated now have an impact later in the year, going away for camp? And no matter whether or not, Ryan, guys like going away for camp, living in the dorms, like, not having the usual amenities that they're used to back at home or at the facility, they do all seem to agree that the team building aspect of this thing, it really is a benefit for a team. And, that team in 2020 was or 2019, despite only, losing in the playoffs, was very close. And, Josh Allen, his passion for going away from camp really was built and formed in 18 and 19 when they came up here. So I think it's beneficial. We'll see. I think it's something that they're going to continue to evaluate in future years. They have 2 years now to evaluate without going away to camp. Obviously, it ended in the AFC title game in 2020 and then in the divisional round in 2021. So we'll see how they finish and how they do this year based on the camp experience.
Yeah, the camp decision has to be very difficult for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, and they both have said that they love going away for camp, and there are obviously clear benefits. Josh Allen mentioned not a lot of there are some players that don't like going away for camp. You mentioned the amenities, the dorm life, all of that. So he tries to be a little goofy, outgoing to make sure that by the end of it they enjoy it more. But we're also talking about a league where there's only 6 teams, Matt, that are still going away from their home base. And when you're talking about Buffalo specifically, and you think about all the training facilities that they have, all of the recovery facilities that they have right there, it's easy to make a case for them staying in Buffalo when that time comes. But the camaraderie, the playing cards, the hanging out together, that wouldn't happen necessarily if camp was in Buffalo, because people would go back to their homes and do their own things possibly. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all gets weighed out over time. Maybe it's cutting down a little bit at St. John Fisher University. Maybe it's one or the other. I'm interested to see what direction that goes long term.
Indeed. I'm interested to see what direction this podcast goes for the next 15 minutes. I will say, guess some breaking news on the show I could share.
Oh,
I had the turkey burger today.
Okay.
The media got served the turkey burgers today. Now, I do not know if they were the actual same ones that the players get. I'd imagine they were. I mean, the kitchens are side by side. It was fine.
Oh,
it was good.
No.
It was good. It was fine. It
not
was
TBT turkey burger time like Josh Allen. I'm not hearing the enthusiasm, Matt.
No, and what's funny is as we were walking over, Dawson Knox finished his media availability, and I heard him saying like they're good, but he's like he would have rated like his favorite cheeseburgers ahead of it, and I'd agree with the take. I think it's fine. I don't know if the bun had something to do with it. Maybe they have different buns, and there were no jalapenos, which I do think, to Elliot's point, would have taken it to the next level, because I am a jalapeno on regular burger guy, also a pepper jack fan, Ryan.
We have talked about this.
We've talked about this, but I would just say ho hum on the turkey burger. I wasn't blown away. I'm not going back for seconds.
Okay, that's fair, but like you mentioned, might be slightly different. You didn't get the jalapenos. You don't know what other toppings Allen might put on it. So, see,
look at Arun. Look at Arun over on Facebook with the shots. All right, Arun, buckle up for this, buddy. Get ready for this. Let's see if I can find it.
For those that are listening on the podcast, he wrote, "Taken with a grain of salt from the guy that likes red, delicious apples." We've
changed the game. We've changed the game. Can you see that, Ryan?
What does it say on the sticker?
What does it say, Ryan?
Fuji? You're going Fuji now?
I'm on the Fuji train. You know why I'm on the Fuji train? I read an article that said pre-workout, the best food that you can eat pre-workout is a Fuji apple.
Man, I get up at 5 a.m. and I
gives you the energy, man.
I don't have time to sit there and eat an apple.
I'm off the Red Delicious train. I gotta say, I'm so sad to walk that back, but I'll still have it if it's available and my kids like it. So occasionally I will. But I go Fuji, I go Macintosh, even though I don't love those, but I eat them because they're high in fiber. And I gotta say, I hate to give you the credit. Honeycrisp pretty good. Damn it. Damn it, Ryan.
So good.
Gosh. I hate giving you that kind of credit.
I understand, but they are, they are amazing. So I'm glad you've come to your senses about that. Oh,
Anyway.
look at this. Apparently, Matt, Tops told you that they are 99 cents a pound this week. Look at that. Getting some deals.
Ooh, I'm gonna run over to Tops. I brought 2 from home, but guess what? We're here for 2.5 weeks. I'm gonna need more. I'm gonna get a couple Fujis for Ryan when he gets here on Friday. Bang!
I'll have one before I work out on Friday morning.
Yes. Tell me. I would like to see if there's any bit of a difference.
Yeah.
All right, where do we want to go next?
Let's talk a little Jaquan Johnson. You mentioned him in your observations as well.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that's happening with Johnson, and Leslie Frazier spoke about it before practice today, is like, the Bills know what they have in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde when they're on the field together. What I think that they probably want to see a little bit more of is, of course, Jaquan Johnson and DeVar Hamlin reps in general, but also how they play with Poyer and or Hyde, right? Because in a situation that pops up during the season, if Poyer gets hurt or if Hyde gets hurt, Jaquan Johnson's probably that next guy up at this point. So getting him those kinds of reps is important. I thought he was pretty good today. I do like Gala Apples as well. I'd probably put him over McIntosh. Granny Smith's terrible. That's another side subject. But Jaquan Johnson, he had the energy up today. There's a few times when he was totally up for the chatter with the offensive sideline. So he got some work today. I thought he looked really good. I thought, again, another guy in year 3 that looks like the pieces are starting to align on the puzzle, knowing where to be and being able to play a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. It's good to get these young players reps with the starters, with someone they could start next to if an injury occurred or something like that happened. And that's what we've talked about. Khalil Elam getting out there on the field, Dane Jackson getting these early reps with Trey White being out. Both of them are getting valuable reps with the starting unit. It's good for Jaquan Johnson to be in there because you are just one injury away, and you want to also evaluate long-term. Is this someone that could slide into a starting role in the next few years? Is he someone that hopefully we can re-sign to a modest deal if that opportunity comes up down the road to have him as one of our starters? Getting them out there, getting that confidence, so that way if something happens in a Super Bowl season like this where the expectations are the big game or bust, but also long-term in terms of evaluations, it's good for a player like Jaquan Johnson, Matt, to get out there on the field.
Let's go inside the notebook, Ryan, for a couple nuggets before we get out of here. Stuff that didn't appear in my observation story. So if you're still in on the live show, or if you're listening to this on the audio version, this is stuff that a little deeper into practice. I thought Devin Singletary got the most work today, and I think not as convincing as Moss was yesterday, but I thought Devin Singletary had a nice practice. He had a couple nice receptions. Brandon Bryant. Ryan, if the Bills keep Caitlin, did you observe pizza cheese? Apparently that was in the shopping list when I went to Wegmans last night that I offered to do, even though I got back late and I knew it would take something off for a plate for this week because I'm going to be gone all week. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Wegmans, and I'm pretty sure I forgot the pizza cheese. And you know why I forgot it, Ryan? Because my son... I just had a night with my son. Kennedy had fallen asleep, so we went to Dairy Queen. I took him to Wegmans, and he found a new fun game to play with Dad. Guess what the game is? Put as much crap in the cart as possible to see if I can slip one by old Pops. Okay? So we're talking about the Cocoa Puffs. We're talking about the fruit snacks. We're talking – no beers, thankfully. We're not at that level yet. But the dude had like 15 or 16 different products that I had to tell him to go put back. And I ended up getting him something. I can't remember what it was. But alas, I forgot the pizza cheese.
I like the shade, Caitlin. I like that you threw a little shade at him for forgetting the pizza cheese. She probably had to run out and get some before dinner tonight if that's what was on the menu. Man, oh, man.
Yeah, I apologize about that. She was excited about that, too.
So Singletary had a good day today.
Brandon Bryant, sack on Case Keenum. And... man, dude, this dude, it's like it's a repetitive topic here. We go back to the spring. He's making plays. He had a couple opportunities last year and, didn't get a lot of reps, didn't get a lot of snaps in games, but man, he just pops. He's got some speed. I think that they probably really like him. If the Bills keep 10 defensive linemen, if I'm power ranking the guys after that, Brandon Bryant's at the top of the list for me.
And I get that, and I understand it completely. And if he can't make that 53-man roster, you have to think that he is a priority practice squad signee. You hope that no one else wants to claim him and that you can bring him back, because given the opportunities he's had in his time in Buffalo, he has made plays in limited opportunities.
On the Cam Lewis pass breakup play, I didn't write about this, but Shaq Lawson, absolutely, probably the most dominant rep for any player on the field. I should have wrote about this actually, but you know why I didn't? It was Shaq Lawson versus Luke Tenuta. And, listen, 6th-round draft pick rookie, you're going to get that from a vet. I mean, the vet's going to cook you every once in a while. So I didn't choose to put that in the observations, but, Shaq Lawson, listen, kind of an under the radar positive to the Bills being able to land Lawson back in the mix, because they're trying to get so much work for some of these younger guys, A.J. Epinesa, Boogie Basham, and Greg Rousseau. Shaq Lawson is going to give really good work to some of these younger offensive linemen wherever he lines up. And, I've seen him now going back to the spring with a bunch of reps against Tenuta. That's only going to benefit a young guy that, the Bills are hoping can kind of land here and see what they can get out of him. But yeah, that was a big time play today. I also want to talk before we get out of here. Gabriel Davis had himself a nice day today. He made probably the catch of the day. Remind me about a Diggs catch too, that I wrote about, but Gabriel Davis had a catch of the day, one-on-one with Khalil Elam. Again, Elam getting all of the work here in training camp early. So these are just irreplaceable reps for the rookie. One-on-one with Gabriel Davis. And once you get position, if you're Davis, if Allen makes a good throw, I don't care if you're going against Jalen Ramsey. It's going to be really tough to defend him because of his size, his ability on the sideline. And that's exactly what happened. Elam was on him. He had pretty sticky coverage, but best throw of the day from Josh Allen on the left sideline, put it where only Gabriel Davis had a shot at it. He went up, made the play, got his 2 feet down. It was the perfect bang, bang routine play. Probably went for about 15 to 20 yards. Spectacular. Davis was just super consistent again today, and that's just what he is now, consistent.
Have you observed any more physicality from him since he's coming in a little bit bigger at 227, or is it too early to say because the pads aren't on?
Too early to say. And I think the pads coming on will get a better sense of that when you got to have the receivers block a little bit too, getting a little bit of that chip at the line. Maybe that'll do it as well. But yeah, observation in the comments, Ilianku dealing with calf issues. So we'll have to wait to see anything from him. The Diggs play, Diggs versus Cam Lewis late in practice down the left sideline. Really good throw from Josh Allen. But Cam Lewis had excellent coverage. And so to get some separation at the last moment, Stefon Diggs with the all-pro little push-off, right? Probably not getting that call if you're Cam Lewis in a regular season game, right? It was pretty obvious. Diggs goes up, makes the play, comes down out of bounds, comes up, throws the ball into the stands. The music was blaring, so he got a little dance in. It was a fun way to end practice. But, yeah, I mean, like we mentioned at the top, up and down day for the offense, some frustrating points at times. But like Alan talked about yesterday, that's what they're doing here, right? They're just starting the practice process. They're starting camp earlier than most teams. And so I think you'll really probably want to see them come into some more consistency as the week goes on, as they get into pads. And I know people want AJ Epinesa news. Don't have a lot of it. He really has not just popped at all yet in the first 2 days.
Yeah. So, Epinesa, again, Matt will keep an eye on him these next few days. When we're there Friday, Saturday, we'll look for him as well. Give you some news when that becomes available. But the playmakers are making plays, Matt, even when the offense is a little stagnant, when they're struggling a little bit. So it's good to hear Diggs and Davis are off to a hot start. Really looking forward to seeing what these two receivers can do together in the regular season, because Davis clearly looks ready to assume that number 2 role.
All right. Anything else before we get out of here? Final thoughts, Ryan Talbot?
Final thoughts. 2 days in the book. Loving the interactions with the Bills fans here. Loving to see how loud it is at St. John Fisher University. So Bills fans, you're bringing it both online and in person at camp. Keep it up. We'll have you covered every day of practice.
Every day at practice, we are here. I'll probably get a little bit more sun tomorrow, hopefully, and we'll be right back here on the YouTube channel. If you're listening online or audio only, subscribe to the show. Like the show on YouTube, subscribe as well. But if you find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, great time to subscribe so you get the notification every time we publish an episode. Before we get out of here, as always, make sure you text VALUE, VALU, to 80692. Again, that's 80692. That signs you up for the Value Home Center's text program. You'll receive an immediate $10 off a $40 purchase coupon. Plus, you'll be the first to know about new promotions, deals, new products, all the best stuff to make sure that you're locked and loaded for anything you want to do around the house, or anything you need to buy. And Value's got it all. They'll take care of you, Ryan.
No doubt about it, Matt.
All right, that'll do it for today. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.